The Associated Press is reporting that Donald Trump has now officially exceeded the delegate threshold needed to clinch the Republican nomination for president. CBS News is now reaching out to unconfirmed delegates to verify the AP's report. CBS News' latest count has Trump just 20 delegates shy of the magic number of 1237, as you see here. The AP's count, however, does now have Donald Trump officially with 1,238. At this point, the delegate math is really just a formality, as for weeks, Trump has been the party's presumptive nominee. Former communications director for Mitt Romney and Paul Ryan's 2012 campaign, Kevin Sheridan, now joins us from Washington to discuss all things. But Kevin, I do again want to get your reaction, if only to think that 6 weeks ago we were forecasting potential chaos in Cleveland at a contested convention. Your reaction then to today's official news?
Yeah, not unexpected in recent weeks, but certainly if you take the longer view of it, it's quite a ride that he's been on, and utterly shocking that he actually did wrap this up. I mean, if you go back a year ago, less than a year ago, he was not considered a serious candidate. He was not considered a particularly serious person, and now he's the presumptive nominee of the Republican Party, and it's now his job to begin to really bring together the factions of the party that still don't necessarily support him or can't get enthusiastic about him. And so I think that's what his job is to do. He hasn't been doing it a lot in recent days, but that's where we are.
Given your long view, do you think it says more about the candidate then or the electorate?
Probably the electorate. I mean, not to take anything away from the way he utterly changed the entire dynamics of how you run a modern presidential race by taking it directly to the people through Twitter and through his manipulation and control of the media narrative constantly. But look, the electorate on both sides, in the Bernie Sanders wing and in the left wing of the Republican Party, of the Democratic Party, and in the Trump wing of the Republican Party and independents, there's just disaffected voters out there. There's a huge number of people who just don't, are just sick of Washington, sick of the way it's been run for the last 8, 10, 15, 20 years. So this is what you get. You get two disaffected groups of voters, and you get a Donald Trump, and you get a huge wing of the Democratic Party supporting a Bernie Sanders still. You mentioned the last few days for Donald Trump. I want to ask you about that in just a moment, but I do also want to ask you about this phone call now, but last night between your former boss, Paul Ryan, and Donald Trump. It was a meeting that, a conversation that the nominee called a positive and productive conversation. Still no endorsement, however, from the speaker. What do you imagine the two discussed last night? Look, I think they're still talking about the issues that they both care deeply about and trying to find areas where they overlap. And I think Paul Ryan has said he said yesterday that he's still concerned about executive power and executive overreach, and he's concerned that our nominee will understand that that's something that a Republican candidate should care deeply about. And, I think that was part of this conversation. I don't have a readout of what they exactly talked about, but I'm guessing they also talked about tone to some extent, and I know that's still a concern for a lot of Republicans, including the speaker. And
their confrontation, if you will, differences of opinion, if nothing else, have really become a snapshot for what some see as a battle for the soul of the party. A recent poll, in fact, asked Republicans who they trusted more to lead the GOP, and this dropped about 2 days after their first meeting at the RNC headquarters in Washington. 58% said Donald Trump to just 39% for Paul Ryan. As currently constituted, is the GOP now the party of Donald Trump?
Well, if you read into that number, yeah, I guess it is. But there's still a huge number of Republicans that don't, identify with the populist brand, the populist message that Donald Trump has been preaching. But look, a big number do, and that 58% also is probably reflective of the fact that he's seen as a leader, and he's run pretty much on a very strong leader, a strong man kind of persona and image. And not to take anything away from him, that's gotten him this far, and reflected in the number that you see there.
And we also saw some other things that have seemed to have gotten Donald Trump this far. I do believe you were referring to them Tuesday night. He went after New Mexico Governor Susana Martinez. Shortly thereafter, at a campaign event in Albuquerque, New Mexico, shortly thereafter, Speaker Ryan did come to Martinez's defense. She called her, calling her a good Republican and a friend. This ad hominem attack that we see has seemed through the primary season to play to Trump's base, but can it be as effective as he pivots now to a general election?
Well, once again, we're in uncharted territory. To think that the nominee, the presumptive nominee of the Republican Party, who's just wrapping up the necessary delegates, is now attacking a popular governor in an important swing state is just utterly unprecedented and strange to all of us. So we really don't know how that's going to play out. But I can't make a case for why that would be a good thing, other than that he's just trying to shock the system again. But look, Susana Martinez has been an excellent governor. Paul Ryan considers her a friend, and a lot of people look up to her. She's a rising star in the Republican Party, and somebody that he should want to court and even consider in his cabinet or on a ticket. But I don't see that happening, obviously, at this point.
I want to play you something that President Obama said about Trump earlier this morning, in fact, in Japan. Get your response on the other side.
I think it's fair to say that they are surprised by the Republican nominee. They are not sure how seriously to take some of his pronouncements, but they're rattled by him, and for good reason, because a lot of the proposals that he's made display either ignorance of world affairs or a cavalier attitude or an interest in getting tweets and headlines instead of actually thinking through what it is that is required to keep America safe and secure and prosperous, and what's required to keep the world on an even keel.
Kevin, these remarks are echoed by the president's previous remarks, both at the White House Correspondents' Dinner, again in a commencement address to Rutgers, where he has lined up Donald Trump squarely in the crosshairs. Aside then from the words themselves, do you think we're seeing now the first real steps taken by the president as a surrogate and real X factor for Hillary Clinton?
I don't see this as coordination. In terms of when he gets out there and starts campaigning. Look, he's got the bully pulpit of the presidency still. He can still command, all the attention of the world anytime he speaks. And, what he said there isn't particularly shocking or anything new that we haven't already heard from him and others. He's saying it on a world stage. He's sending messages to the rest of the world and other world leaders. But yeah, I think we're going to see how he's used this summer and deployed by the Clinton campaign to certain swing states. I would expect to see him in urban areas and Democratic strongholds. And he probably will, and to some extent, put the attacks on Donald Trump that they want to really hone in on and drive down, because he still is the president of the United States, and he does command a lot of attention when he speaks.
Meanwhile, and I'll let you go on this one, we did see a degree of personal attack in the last week or so from both sides. But we also saw yesterday Donald Trump weaponized now by this news from the Inspector General of the Secretary of State with regard to Hillary Clinton's use of a private email server. I wonder, again, she responded saying, look, there's no new news here. She also remains under investigation for that use by the FBI as well. What, if any, lasting impact do you see this latest bit of news having?
Well, I think the email server and the IG report that just came out that says basically that everything she has been saying since the UN press conference back in March of 2015 has literally is false, and she can't. None of it stands up to the test of time and further investigation. So now they've got this. They're in this weird place where they're saying, well, this is just a systemic failure of the State Department's email. That's not going to hold up either. That's just blatantly not true. She was, she set up her own server. She, didn't turn over records for 2 years. So nothing that she has said is actually true. And it kind of perfectly encapsulates what people dislike about Hillary Clinton. And that is that no one can really tell her what to do. She kind of, runs in her own lane as far as, these privacy concerns that she had. She said she was setting it up for convenience. We found an email just yesterday now that she was talking to Huma Abedin saying, no, she was actually setting it up for personal use and for privacy issues and not convenience at all. So that turns out to be completely false. So this is just more of what people already dislike about Hillary Clinton. It's the reason why her unfavorable ratings are so high.
It is a campaign of historic unfavorable ratings on both sides. Kevin Sheridan, Washington. We really appreciate the time today, Kevin.
You bet.